Okay, I think we can start. We have also started our live broadcast on YouTube. So good evening, everybody. So unfortunately, we are here for our last session in this summer school. But on the other hand, fortunately, we have a great guest, Dr. Yousef Abu Soud. He's a Palestinian academic living in Istanbul temporarily. He was born in Gaza camp in Jordan in 1976. He holds his doctoral degree in leadership studies within Saudi and GCSEs at University of Huddersfield, UK. He served as an assistant professor of strategic leadership and organizational development at King Abdulaziz University in Saudi Arabia. In relation to Palestine, he's a member of the board of trustees of both Palestine Return Center in London and Popular Conference for Palestinians Abroad. He has several contributions and studies on the Arab-Israeli conflict, and his research mainly focuses on the challenges of Palestinian identity in the diaspora and the development of Palestinian residence movements, as well as their relations with the Arab countries and, in a broader term, with international relations. So tonight he's going to give us a lecture entitled as Search of Homeland, Palestine, Diaspora. Dr. Yusuf, welcome again. Ahlan wa sahlan. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yousef. Welcome to all colleagues here. I'm happy to have me here with you to speak about one of the great issues related to Palestinian outside. My lecture will be devoted and divided into 5 main parts. The first part will be an introduction generally about academia and Palestinian outside. The second issue will discuss where are Palestinians who are abroad, where are they, and from where they have exiled. And the third point will be on Palestinian abroad or on Palestinian refugees, some issues, some political issues related to this. The other thing will be about social and, let me say, political challenges facing Palestinian outside Palestine. And the fourth point will be a study, or let me say, a revision for some initiatives that were made by Palestinian outside Palestine in relation to their seek for homeland. And at the end, I will end with the 3 main recommendations. That is the skeleton of my lecture today. Let me start directly with the introduction, what I want to say. It is really harmful in academia to say that Palestinian in the diaspora. The best name for Palestinian outside Palestine is to call them Palestinian in exile or exiled Palestinian, because they were not chosen to go outside Palestine, but they are with forced, obliged to leave their country for other countries. I do understand that the diaspora as a term were narrated and put by policy in the West directly, or to some, let me say, centers that are related to United Nations first, then after that to some American centers that put the diaspora as something that were carry the shadow of not going back, the shadow of not being together. The diaspora, as a translation to Arabic, it means what is called shatat. Shatat means that everywhere, every place, and you cannot gather and you cannot be together. So better to say that Palestinian in exile, because we were exiled outside Palestine. We, not our, but our fathers, our grandfathers who were exiled. And this could be maybe an early recommendation before I start, that it's good to study to how extent policy influence academia in relation to studying Palestine, and to how extent this academia positively influence the political situations of some countries. And this issue, I just would like to say something, that while studying the relationship, or how Western academia see the struggle of Palestine, I usually find that they fall in what is called double standard and what is called the propaganda that were done by Israeli writers, Israeli policies, Israeli centers, Israeli think tanks sometimes, who put some kind of a propaganda that shows or that put some terms that could carry and not help the Palestinian to go back to their country or work for this one. The second part, that was just an introduction. The second part of my speech will be where are Palestinian exiled now, or where are the Palestinian abroad now? As you know, most of Palestinian by force left Palestine in 1948, or through the war of 1948. Most of them went to Jordan, to Gulf areas, Arab Gulf areas. Some of them went to America, to Europe. And the second phase that was done in 1976, or after the war of 1976, that was in June, or the 5th of June, that date. Most of them also went to the same countries. Some of them went to Lebanon before that, to Syria, to most of the countries there. So nowadays, and this is a very, very important statistics, nowadays, according to the Central Palestine Statistics Center in Ramallah, Palestinian inside and outside Palestine are more than 14 million. More than 7 of them are outside Palestine. Around 52% of Palestinians are outside Palestine, based on the statistics that were made by the center that I was mentioned there. So this huge mass of people, although they are outside Palestine, I understand there are some geographical challenges that they are facing, because they are not in the same country. They are facing many regimes, and they are under different and various political, social, educational, economical also systems, and they face through this 75 or 80 years a lot of challenges. I will summarize some of these challenges while speaking. Just to mention, in Jordan nowadays, and based on the UNRWA statistics, in Jordan there are around 3 to 4 million. In Syria there are around 500,000 to 700,000. In Lebanon there are 3 to 4,000. Although some or many of them in the last year were forced to leave Lebanon to Europe and other countries. In the Gulf area, Saudi Arabia and other GCCs, there are around 1 million. In Latin America, there are around 700,000. In America, around 2 million, or in America and Europe, around 2 million, or let me say between 1 and 2 million just to have, because there are not accurate statistics for people there and here, and I'll tell you why we don't have such kind of statistics related to this issue. The second thing, this is the situation of Palestinian abroad. Most of them were exiled from the lands of Palestine in 1984, which is unfortunately recognized as Israel by the international community nowadays. Some of them were exiled from Gaza camp, others from the West Bank. But most of people who were outside Palestine were exiled from the lands of 1948, like the cities of Jaffa, Haifa, Nasira, Bir al-Saba, and all these cities from the north of Palestine up to the south of it. The second issue related to this introduction, or this, let me say, platform I want to speak about, is that Palestinian refugees usually treated in some countries as being immigrants, not as refugees. And this is one of the big challenges that they face nowadays. I mean, if you go to Gulf area or GCCs, there are around 1 million in Saudi Arabia and other countries. Most of them are not treated as refugees, but they are treated as immigrants. They come here for work or something. They were not exiled there, although they are Palestinian refugees. And in some countries like Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and others, they are treated as refugees because of there is UNRWA and there are some humanitarian aids that they usually receive from these agencies. But the problem that between immigrants and refugees is still the mass volume of Palestinian outside Palestine will be lost. I mean, in some areas they are treated as refugees, in other they are immigrants. If you go to America, it is second phase of immigration for them. First of all, they were exiled to the countries around Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan. Then after that, they took themselves and went to America and Gulf areas. That's why this travel or this journey of Palestinian who were forced to leave their countries still influenced their ability to unite themselves. So they see some of them see themselves as refugees, others see themselves as immigrants, and also the political regimes in the countries where they live, or the hosting countries of them, some of them treat them as refugees, others treat them as immigrants, and in some countries, some treat them as being part of their citizenship. I mean, in Jordan, most of refugees took the Jordanian citizenship, but in Lebanon, the situation is different. This variation, although to some extent it was useful in some areas, but at the same time it was harmful in the sense that it could not unite Palestinian as one identity. And when I go to identity, I usually say, and I usually speak to people who are around me when I speak about Palestine outside, I usually speak, we usually concentrate on Palestinian identity, not as being only national identity related to the borders of Palestine. It is concentrated, or we concentrated because of its speciality, its unique state as being as identity of struggle, identity of conflict, identity of revolution. That's why we cannot put Palestinian identity in counter of other Arab identities where Palestinians live, like the situation in Jordan, the situation in Lebanon, the situation in Syria, or any other countries. We treat Palestinian identity as unique because it is the identity that is targeted by the enemies of the Palestinian people, which is the Zionist movement, that try to eliminate, to make this identity absent from the world. It is targeted by each means in order not to have this identity existent. Going back to the history of Palestinian identity, before 1967, which was the war, and after it to some extent, where there was some kind of resistance to the borders of Palestine. I mean, the PLO was outside Palestine in these ages. That's why, with resistance, there was a very, very active Palestinian identity. When PLO went back to Palestine by Oslo Agreement, as you know, the Palestinian identity outside Palestine became very, very weak. That's one of the problems. So the Palestinian identity is usually linked with the resistance of Palestinian people outside Palestine. And when I mean by resistance, I do not mean only military resistance that was occurred now inside Palestine. I mean resistance by each means, political, social, and everything. All these are kinds of let me say, resistance that is allowed by international laws and by all agreements that were done in the international community. So the Palestinian identity after 1976, and when PLO was outside Palestine and was working outside Palestine, all Palestinians were linked to the PLO and they worked for it, and it was in a very, very healthy situation. The PLO agencies were active outside Palestine. PLO, I mean Palestinian Liberation Organization, is, as you know, but the situation after Oslo was really different. Palestinian outside Palestine or Palestinian in the exile were eliminated, where a struggle, or let me say, some kind of conflict occurred between the center, which is Palestine, and the branches where Palestinian abroad or Palestinian in the exile where. That's why many problems occurred to Palestinian. So just to end with this part, I just would like to say, just to summarize sentences, that concentrating on Palestinian identity abroad lies in the fact that this identity is in danger by international Zionism and by all the policies that were made by Israel. That's why we should treat this Palestinian identity as something unique that is related to the whole struggle of Palestinian people inside Palestine. The second thing, or the second part, or the third part, I just would like to speak about, which is the main part, or maybe the longest part. I just would like to speak about challenges facing Palestinian outside Palestine. The most important issue regarding this is that to some extent there is no solid mass of Palestinian abroad. I mean, after Oslo Agreement, and when the Palestinian Authority dominated the PLO agencies and made these PLO agencies very, very weak and inactive to follow the issues of Palestine outside, there was, let me say, a very, very bad relation between the center, which is Palestine, and people outside. That's why this is one of the main challenges. There was, and there is now, no people that could represent the Palestinian outside in the decision making of Palestine. I mean, nowadays, Palestine abroad does or do not have access to the Palestinian decision. I mean, they are not elected inside the Palestinian councils of the PLO. They are not even asked about what are the next steps. They are not even consulted about the issues that goes for everyday life of people, because everything is related to the Palestinian Authority, which dominate the scene now, and which particularly concentrated on not to generate any kind of power with this a huge mass of Palestinian abroad. So if you go to any consulate of Palestine in any other countries, you will find them work for something related to administrative issues of Palestine. Although some consulates are quite active, but the dominated scene or the dominating scenes shows that it is a policy that was made by Palestinian Authority just to concentrate on just consulate issues not related to political issues that will express and unite the Palestinian outside Palestine to be as one major unit, one major power that face all the challenges facing the Palestinian cause. The second issue or challenge facing Palestinian outside when they're in their search for homeland is related to the humanitarian approach in targeting Palestine outside and targeting people of Palestine outside their country. I mean, Palestinian abroad should not be only treated as people who are seeking for aid. They are people who seeks for their country, for their homeland, for their rights in their homeland, for their identity. That's why the United Nations Agency, unfortunately, fell in what is called double standard, or let me say, some kind of bias when they treat Palestinian as only people who are seeking for humanitarian aid of some corn or wheats or some other cans or some issues, although they are people who are seeking for their homeland, who are seeking for their rights, who are seeking for being one united body, work for their countries. And unfortunately, hosting country also went with this one in the scene that it prevented to some extent or neglected these Palestinians' rights to be a political body that could work for their sake to go to their homeland. That's why humanitarian approach or humanitarian issues in approaching Palestinian struggle outside should stop, or at least should accompany it with some political, legal, economical issues that should social approaches that sees these Palestinian as not just people who seeks for aid, but people who seeks for their country, for their political issues in Palestine. The third challenge that could be target today is that changes occurred by Arab regimes, particularly Arab regimes, and particularly in countries like Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, particularly, and to some extent in Egypt, Gulf countries, and others, in the sense that these political regimes, they have to some extent the relations with Israel. These relations, when they were developed like peace agreement with Israel, this negatively influenced the struggle of Palestinians inside their country. That's why they force Palestinians not to work for their homeland, not to express their identity to some extent, or to the extent that they see this identity as being a danger for the national identity of these Arab countries, which is really a big mistake that is taken for the country itself and for the Palestinian identity and for the future of struggle. I do understand that one of our problems in Palestine lies in the fact that the Arab regime, I mean the Arab political regimes, do not have one united project that could be done against the Zionist or the Israeli project. That's why we, as Palestinian outside Palestine, struggle and also negatively influenced by these kinds of problems that were done from Jamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt up to the peace agreement that were occurred in the last 20 or 30 years between these countries. This variation, or let me say bad variation, between the Arab regimes and their struggle between each other, and the way it was changed with their struggle against the Zionist project or against Israel, negatively influenced the Palestinian struggle of Palestinian people outside Palestine. One of the major issues that we really, it's a social issue, by the way, but it's very important to highlight. I usually call it as what is called Palestinophobia or Palestinophobia. You can consider it. Palestinophobia lies in the fact that all people, when they go to airport or to the borders, they are treated as people who are being criminals because they have Palestinian passport or Palestinian document. Unfortunately, most of people who were exiled from Palestine, they took either Jordanian passports or Jordanian documents, Lebanese documents, Egyptian ones for the people in Gaza. That's why when you go to any airport and they found yourself as being Palestinian, you are not welcomed, or you are suspect to some inspections, or you will be treated in a very, very hard way that leads to being late for your appointments or something like that. So that's why Palestinian people started their other journey to find good passports for themselves in Europe and America. That's why many people in the countries around Palestine, or I mean Palestinian people, they went outside these countries to Europe, Australia, America, Canada to find better way to life. So this Palestinophobia, I can consider it, is one of the challenges where people, it is one of the misunderstanding of Palestinian rights. I mean, all these countries, whether in Turkey, in Malaysia, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, wherever if they support Palestine, they should treat Palestinian as being human being, as being a special case that will help them. You cannot say that I support Palestine and unfortunately you treat Palestinian people in your airports and put in a very bad life. I do not nominate countries in particular, but I do call for not having this misery that usually we see as Palestinian outside Palestine. The second issue in regard to this, or let me say another challenge, is what is called, I usually say it, the very bad conditional, which says that Palestinian people should suffer in order to keep them or keep their right to return. Who said that? Palestinian people should not work in Lebanon, should not have their rights in Syria or in other countries, should not or should suffer in the borders or in their countries, so that we do this one in order not to neglect their rights to Palestinian people. Am I okay?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now again. Okay.
Okay. Palestinian people, as I said before, should not should not be, as I said before, should not be treated harshly in order to keep their rights to go back to their homelands. This conditional is very, very harmful to the future of Palestine and the future of people. Like people who are now in Europe now and in America, they support Palestine. They stay and stand in front of the whole world to support Palestine better than countries which is around Palestine. Why? Because they live in conditions and in freedom that is better than in the countries around Palestine. This conditional is very harmful, and it is not a useful approach that is applied by Arab policy in particular. Other Muslim countries' policies would not target people of Palestine as being people that needs this kind of harshful issues. And another important issue related to this one, before I finish with some initiatives, which is the last one, education of Palestinian generations abroad. Here in Turkey and in any other countries, whether in Europe or in America or even in the Middle East area, they have one united educational system that put all national goals of the country in on floor that could be educated by all people and by all generations. Because Palestinian outside Palestine are in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, and some of them are in Turkey here. Others are in Europe and America. They are expressed to many educational systems. And just to say the truth, even the UNRWA, which is the Palestinian agency that works for Palestine, they apply the national educational systems of the hosting countries where Palestinian people, I mean, there is no special case for Palestinians to learn about their homeland. Even only that was done by people inside their houses. I mean, there is no united educational system that could help these generations of people to learn about their countries. Like here in Turkey or in any other country, you will see people study about the history of Turkey, the geography of Turkey. But in Palestine or for Palestinian abroad, we don't have anything related to this one in our educational system. So who will decide the philosophy of learning in regard to this one? The philosophy of being people who will learn about the history, the future, the special case of Palestine. Even though, or let me add about this one, that in some other countries there was, before Oslo or before agreement that was done with Israel, there was a course in some countries, Arab countries, which is called the Palestinian cause. Now it is cancelled and eliminated because we don't need them to study anything about Palestine. So that's the problem. That's the case we usually face. And this is really a big challenge in regard to this one. I only have around 10 minutes. And throughout these 10 minutes, I will concentrate on some initiatives of Palestinian abroad in order to seek for homeland. The first thing to say is that the struggle of Palestinian abroad to work for their return is not new. It is more than 70 or 80 years old. It was negatively influenced through Oslo, as I said before. But although Palestinian abroad worked for this one, particularly in particularly in Europe. That's why I would like to highlight the PRC in London, which is Palestine Return Center. It is a very good academic center that works for refugees, and it also got the the membership of the United Nations for centers who works for humanitarian and refugee issues. There are excellent studies that were made for Palestine outside. It helped to highlight the issue of Palestine inside. The second thing to say is that Palestinian in Europe in general, I mean European countries, they gathered themselves in a very, very unique and also attracting event which occurred every year called the Major Conference of Palestinian in Europe. Usually it is activated and worked and gathered in one capital, the second year another capital, the third year in another capital. That's why it goes around and it works for all people to be gathered and to discuss their issues related to their work for homeland. This kind of awareness that was created among people in America also, like their committees for Muslims in Palestine. In Latin America also, there is also a very, very good initiative there. These initiatives came because of some kind of awareness between generations that we should do something. We should work together. We should gather on something. We should do something for our countries. Just only to gather ourselves, unite our efforts, work together in order to help or in order to support our issues in Palestine, and also to fill the gap that was generated and occurred because of the inactive, let me say, activities of the PLO agencies, which was stopped, as I said before. So these initiatives are very important. To some extent, in 2017, around 7 years from now, these efforts, let me say, produce something which is, or let me say, an entity which is a really very good project, which is called Popular Palestinian or Popular Conference of Palestinian Abroad. It is located in many areas. It has branches in many areas in Lebanon, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Europe also, America, Venezuela, wherever you like, there are branches, and they are united branches. They work together. Although it is, as I said before, popular effort, not formal effort, and we understand to how extent formal efforts are really very, very, let me say, are much more active than popular one. But this is a kind that comes by accumulative, and we hope that all people who works formally for Palestine, the consulate and all these, will work together for their communities in order to unite our efforts and work together for people of Palestine. Just to end in the 3 or 4 minutes that I have, I just would like to highlight some recommendations before I receive your questions. I just would like to say 3 main recommendations in the last of my lecture. The first recommendation for Palestinians themselves, I mean for ourselves, that we should unite us together, whether formal and popular, in order to work and help to have this large body of 7 million people outside to have their main power, their main struggle, their main goals, in order to be all united in front of people. This is really a very, very important recommendations. As I usually say, that we cannot ask others to help us if we do not help ourselves. This is one of the problems that we usually face. It's not a matter of judging whether Oslo agreement or people who works for Oslo is good or bad. It's not a matter to discuss this one. But that's the case we should work in. The second thing is that maybe it's a recommendation for academia and for all scholars who target Palestinian issues. It's very, very important to listen from Palestinian people themselves, not just listen or narrate or maybe cite what is available in academia. And to some extent, and after deep study and deep, let me say, follow up with the academia related to Palestinian and in particular, there are some misunderstanding, whether done deliberately, I mean by purpose or without purpose. It really locked down the Palestinian struggle, and it was unfortunately influenced by Zionist or by Israeli literature. I hope this should be studied. I just would like to say that all people who listen from Palestinians themselves were successful in targeting the Palestinian issue, even for think tanks and for policy. All people who listen and only listen to Israeli sources, they neglected what's going on inside and outside Palestine. The third thing to say is that I do understand that Palestinians have the right of return, and you call your summer school as something for Palestinians to return. But I do believe that we cannot go back to Palestine or return back to Palestine if we do not have the right to liberate Palestine from the Zionist people who are inside Palestine. That's the nature of our struggle. We will not go back to Palestine while and live under the Israeli nation. We would like to go back to Palestine to live under the Palestinian citizenship, the Palestinian national, the Palestinian country, not the Israeli one, because we do not have any problem with the Jews, any problem with Israelis outside Palestine. Only the problem is with the people who occupied our land and forced our fathers and grandfathers to go outside Palestine. That's why we need to, the world in general, the academia in particular, to understand our right to liberate Palestine and to work for the liberation of Palestine, which was recognized by all international laws, international communities, which give the rights to liberate our countries and to resist in any way that could help us to liberate our land. So what I want to say is that liberation of Palestine comes before or as a prerequisite to the right of return. Thank you very much. It was a good chance to listen from you, and I'm ready for listen. Have I took my time or more, Mr. Yousef?
You're perfect. So everything is going on time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. So this was a great seminar with a lot of insights indeed regarding the Palestinian refugees. I mean, what it is to be like a Palestinian refugee, and in fact, how what a complex thing it is to be a Palestinian living outside Palestine due to the occupation. So our first question asks you if you can make like a comparison between the early generations and the current generations regarding their main priorities, especially, you know, about what it is to be a Palestinian, and so what they mainly target.
Yes, okay. Would you like me to answer directly or take the whole questions?
I think we can go one by one.
One by one. Okay, great. It could be called the question of Palestine among the generation of Palestinian outside Palestine. That could be a summary of the question that was raised. I do understand that all people of Palestinian who were exiled themselves, who were noticed the Nakba, noticed the Naksa in 1948 and 1970 or 67. All these people, they look forward for their country in a way which is better for people like me who was born outside Palestine. That's the case. I do understand that by ages and ages, the seek for homeland or for going for homeland will be reduced. That's why this gap needs to be filled by education, by awareness, by working together, by focusing on Palestinian identity, Palestinian legacy, and all these people. That's why we should take care of this one, not to neglect this one. And that's one thing. The second thing, which is really very important, I do understand that we are, let me say, focusing, or we are exposed to what is called a great change in civilization. I mean the change or the technological change. This technological change, which made everything easy to watch. I mean, the right for people to see everything, to watch everything, wherever they were. You can just have your mobile and you will be open to the world. This kind of technological change, which is really a change in civilization, made these new generations with a very, very high link to Palestine. I mean, they listen, they see, they gather, they work. That's why, just to say the truth, and from a person who followed this one, all let me say activities that occurred and will occur inside universities in America in particular and Europe, they were done by people of Palestinian fathers who were exiled from their countries. That's why the question of Palestine is still available. It's quite strong because of this civilization. Another issue, which is really very, very important in this regard, it's fortunately, by the way, not unfortunately, that we face this radical religious Zionist government, which goes to radicalism more and more. The activities of this Israeli government, when they force and kill people in Gaza and West Bank every day, and these people see these events on their screens, they ask themselves, what should I do? So that's why it's really a very, very big issue and a very, very big recommendations for all political regimes. If you need stability in the region, you should take care of Palestinian rights. You should stop this genocide available inside Palestine, because all generations of Palestine outside will work for their countries. It will not frighten them. It will help them to work and more and more for the sake of homelands. So just to summarize, I just would like to be sure, or not just would like to support that Palestine will not be neglected through generations. It will be more and more active in the minds of our generations outside. Hope that I answered the question.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question says, indeed, I am also curious about your answer to this question. So some countries argue that in order to preserve the hope of return, they do not integrate Palestinians into the host society. This creates difficulties for Palestinian refugees, especially we see this in Lebanon. How strong is the sense of return among Palestinians? Could you provide examples from different countries?
Yeah, that's a very, very big issue. I highlighted this one when I said that there is one harmful condition that is done on the necks of Palestinian outside when you say that this Palestinian should suffer, should not take his rights as a citizen inside this country, so that we will take care of his return to Palestine. This harmful condition, it does not work. And an example of this, all people or all Palestinians who are in America, they are citizens of America, they are citizens of Europe, they are citizens of Turkey, and they work and vote for Turkey, and they take care of their home issues. At the same time, they work for Palestine. It does not go as one counter the other. The Palestinian identity does not encounter the rights for citizenship. That's the case. I mean that we cannot, as Palestinian, we will not neglect our right for return, our work for Palestine, if we took our, let me say, civil rights to work, civil rights to travel, civil rights to take medicine, civil rights to be educated, not only education that is done by UNRWA and all these ones. This is really a harmful condition. I do understand with the person, and I do sympathize with the person who answer such kind of a question. Because for Palestinian abroad in their search for homeland, we should give them their civil rights. You cannot neglect this civil rights in order to help them to return. This is a very, very harmful condition you put on the necks of these people.
Okay, thank you very much. So another questions is about the Jewish Agency. So the Jewish Agency worked to facilitate the transfer of Jews to Palestine from all over the world. What is the equivalent Palestinian organization, and what are its activities in terms of supporting the return of Palestinians and helping those under occupation remain in their homeland, not to flee from there?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I will not concentrate about what the Jewish agencies works for Palestine, as this is something related to history, but we do all recognize and understand, and let me say that the Jews unfortunately were successful in gathering Jewish from all over the world and put them in Palestine. This was done in a very, let me say, clever way. I can say and admit this one. And we failed as Palestinian to, let me say, work for more. But just to say something, people inside Palestine nowadays, whether in the areas of 1948, where are the cities of Jaffa, Nasira, Haifa, and all these cities, they do not leave their countries outside. They are still inside their countries. They don't leave. They are, although they are facing many, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, they are facing very, very bad activities and events, or let me say, measurements that were done by Israeli forces against them. But they are still available because they do understand if they go outside, they will not be able to go back. And even though, and also, the Palestinian or the Israeli forces also try to force people from Gaza, from West Bank nowadays, in order to live outside the countries. That was they are threatening Jordan to send Palestinian of West Bank to the Jordanian areas or the Jordanian lands. And people of West Bank understand this one. That's why they understood the trick, understood the Israeli measurements and what is behind these in order to this one. The problem occurred, and this is my answer to the question. The problem occurred is that how these people will go back to their countries. I mean, there are a lot of approaches for second or a two-state solution, one-state solution. All these solutions, if you go to them and study them directly, they do not work and they are not available. Even the Israeli governments through the last 10 or 15 years, they killed all two-state solutions possibilities. So how these people will go back to their homelands? That's why what I want to say that you cannot put the cart in front of the horse. Put first the horse in front of the cart. What comes first is my right to liberate Palestine, to get these Zionist people go outside Palestine. Then after that, I come back to the Palestine. But at the same time, as hosting country and hosting community, help me, or at least give me the right to work for homeland and support my people inside Palestine. Not just only ask me to stop, not to work, or even understand my duties for Palestine as being illegal, which is occurred in some areas in the Arab world, and unfortunately, that's the case. If you'd like to name things as they are, go back beyond, let me say, and I'm sorry to say that, go back beyond the politeness and the diplomatic way of academia. That's the case. You cannot ask people to go back to the Palestine while it is occupied. We should all work together to let it occupied. Although at the same time, if people who are having, let me say, Western passport and could easily go back to support people, particularly in Jerusalem and or the areas, they are welcomed by Palestinians. But you cannot recognize Israel in order to go back to Palestine and do nothing there. That's the case.
Okay, thank you very much. So another question says, why do you think Palestinians were not quite successful in creating a strong, competitive political presence within Western institutions or Western societies? Another question says, like, what about the American Congress? Why don't we see a strong Palestinian lobby there? Isn't it important for Palestinians to influence the foreign policy of Western countries, particularly that of the United States?
Two reasons behind this question. The first question is the weakness of the political leadership of Palestine, particularly the Palestinian Authority. We do understand that Palestinian authorities or agencies of Palestinian Authority, even the missions that were sent abroad, they are not active and they work for a limit, and they just come just to speak about this issue or not, but they don't plan to create think tanks, to create lobbies, to create supporters for Palestine in the West, particularly in America. That's one thing. The other thing in this issue is related that Palestinians do not take support from other countries, I mean Arab countries in particular and Muslim ones. I mean that they do not take a platform to work on in order to be in counterpart with Israeli lobbies inside. That is related to the weakness, or let me say the absence of Arab project against Israeli one, and the absence also of formal project of Palestinian encounter of Israeli one. That's one thing. The second thing, or the second reason behind this phenomena, we call it phenomena, is that American policy. We do suffer of American policy and Western policy in general that stands with Israeli rights and do not stand with Palestinian one. That usually apply the double standard when they see people of Palestine killed every day and every day, and they neglect their rights. But they concentrate and ask all the international community to be gathered for only 6 or 7 people from Ukraine or from Russia or from any other countries or from even Israel to gather the whole community for them. This is really harmful. Nowadays in Gaza, more than 100,000 people between injured, killed, and disappeared. More than this one. And the international community do nothing for Palestinians. They just ask about ceasefire, and that is done by Netanyahu, and that is only approved by Netanyahu. That's the case. We do not apply, the international do not apply forces. The problem is that we as Palestinians, as Arabs in particular, as Muslims, we failed to create such kind of loops. And I do understand all these efforts that were done by particular people or individual inside America here or there, by agencies here or there. They are helpful, and by time it will go. But I just would like to raise something at the end of answering this question. Things are changing strategically, or in strategy, things are changing in the West. I mean, all Western policy are exposed to criticism by Western people nowadays in regard to Palestine. This double standard is exposed to criticism, to harsh criticism by the people. And this will create instability of this world. I mean, the cost of supporting Israel by the Western policy is getting much more expensive to these political regimes in the West. Not even in the West, but even also in the Arab area. The cost of supporting Israel is nowadays getting much more expensive. And by days, it will be much more expensive. So that's why we should have such kind of justice, such kind of equality when we deal with the struggle of Palestinian and Israeli forces.
Thank you very much. And not yesterday, but the day before, I think, when we were listening to Ramzi Baroud, he said, in reference to Richard Falk, he said Israel is losing this legitimacy war against Palestinians. And I think it is true because if you look at what has happened in the Arab world after October 7 is like almost the death of the Abraham Accords, and then we have been witnessing mass protests in the Western societies and partial arms suspension in the UK, so this is like an unprecedented, societal turn to Palestine and saying that look, there is something going on here other than the mainstream media tells us. So there's like a awakening, at least this is what I observe. And maybe a third point, before joining this session, I just read an analysis on Haaretz. It says Netanyahu is putting Turkey and Egypt closer to each other, although everybody thinks that Sisi and Erdogan would never meet again, So in short, I mean, I agree with the point that you highlighted. And our last question, it says, although you highlighted many of the challenges at the beginning of your session, considering the difficulties the Palestinian diaspora or Palestinians living outside of their country face in maintaining their cultural identity and advocating for their homeland while living in different countries. What are the most significant socio-political and economic challenges they encounter? How do these obstacles impact their efforts to stay connected to the Palestinian cause and identity? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a short sentence about what you have said in regard this one. I just would like to say something that what's going on about legitimacy of Israel and where it goes down nowadays. It will not influence European policy now, but it will to 100% sure influence Western policy in the future. I mean, in policy or in political sciences or in political work, things goes accumulative. I mean, one day to another, because they are related to the nature of human behavior. That's why when we start with awareness, when we start with the question of Palestine in the West, I do understand that this will not influence what's going on now in Palestine, but for sure that it will influence after 10 years, one decade, or more than this one. But for sure that it will work, and that's why we should work, or we should understand it before it influence the whole stability of the world. We should target the Palestinian issue in relation to the stability of the region. Nowadays, the blindness available when we go to relation with Israel, support it, neglect the Palestinian rights, we negatively influence the stability in the region. And all people should understand this one, because people who sees everything in front of them, sees people killed, we do not expect to or expect the extent that they will reach in their radicalism in the way they think. So that's why I just would like to say that if you do not give the Palestinian their rights, if they do not stop the double standard that is occurred, unfortunately, stability in the region will negatively influence. That's a very important issue. Going back to the question that was raised about the cultural identity of Palestinian and how they should follow. I do understand that all people of Palestine who are outside, they usually follow the traditions of Palestinian people when they eat, when they dress, when they have weddings, when they have ceremonies, when they have any activities, whether it is good or bad ones. That's why they feel happy when they express that kind of cultural identity. And when they express this cultural identity, they do not send messages to the hosting communities that we are against you or we are encounter you. No, we are against and encounter the Israeli measurements or the Israeli forces who try to eliminate and to make silent, or to let me say violate the laws in order to neglect or cancel this Palestinian identity. But I just would like to say something, that taking care of Palestinian heritage is a very important issue. But link this Palestinian heritage to social, economical, political struggle to Palestine is very important. I mean, it's not a matter just to wear Palestinian dressing for women, but at the same time, we should raise our sounds and ask people to be around us in order to work for Palestine. I mean, it's not a matter of see yourself as Palestinian or pro-Palestinian or work for Palestine. But at the same time, we should all work for having this Palestinian issues to be unique. The second issue to say that this one, a lot of initiatives occurred nowadays, whether economical or social, between Palestinian in order to support themselves outside. Here in Turkey, we have a lot of agencies, associations for Palestinian students that support students who came from inside Palestine, who were maybe lost their families without any support. So we have something like this one, but still, these are under the humanitarian purposes, not the political one. What we are seeking is to take care of the political struggle against the Israeli forces. Just the last thing to summarize this issue, what is nowadays very important is to put the struggle against Israeli measurements in the region is very important, more than the working for the right of return. I mean, Israeli policies nowadays are targeting all the countries around the Palestine, Gulf countries with Abraham agreements, Jordan by asking and sending all these people here. So all people, Jordanian people, Gulf people, all these people should work together with Palestinian in order to face these forces of Israel, or these measurements of Israel, because Israel now is the danger of this region, not only the danger inside Palestine. Israeli forces put all the region in danger. They are violating the laws of all people inside Turkey, in Europe, in many other countries. And you heard about the news about what the Mossad did in other countries like Turkey and others. That's the case. The case is now is that Israel does not respect international law. Israel does not respect academia even. Israel does not respect the agreement that were done by even Arab countries, by let me say, by people of the Abraham agreement, and they violate their countries. That's the case. So if you do not want to stand in front of Israeli, just let the Palestinians stand in front of them and just support them. If not, do not neglect them, or even do not punish them because they resist against their rights.
Okay. Thank you very much. We really enjoyed your session. So I don't remember the exact number, but I think this was our 14th or 15th session, and we have covered like the international law, the history of Palestine, the Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, the Palestinians living in refugee camps, and how to govern a refugee camp. What is the UNRWA for? What does the UN do? So we have covered, I think, pretty much everything regarding the theme of return to Palestine. So I would like to thank you, all our participants, as well as to Orta Doğu Vakfı, Afrika Vakfı, and East Academy. We have had the chance to listen to very important, esteemed guests. So my final words humbly regarding the Palestinian issue is that as a history student, I just observed that the time flows much slower than we realize. So if you look at all the big events or like the histories of countries, empires, we just read it. But while reading, you indeed read, like in one paragraph, you learn about 1 century. Like when we talk about the life of Prophet Muhammad sallam, uh, we immediately start reading how he received the first wahi in Hira, and then we end up with his death, and then it's quite short, but no, it's a huge life. It's an array of changes, transformations within his society and its homeland and its landscape. So again, the same thing. I mean, we have been listening to all our guests, and they have been telling us about Palestine, refugees, problems, Uh, but at the end, maybe we will not see, but I am pretty sure the next generation will see a very much stronger Palestinian cause internationally. And our prayers are, of course, together with all the people in Gaza and also in West Bank, especially in Jenin nowadays. So we just try for brighter days in the future. And again, thank you very much, and hope to see you again in another summer school or another school, let's say. Okay, goodbye.